On this edition of Lexington Now, a walk across Kentucky, nature hop, and being an active bystander. I'm Neil Noah, and welcome to Lexington Now for the week of September 6th, 2021. We continue our series on the Arboretum and State Botanical Garden as Emily Ellingson takes us on a walk across Kentucky.
So I am the native plants curator at the Arboretum. That means that I manage the maintenance, development, and interpretation of the Walk Across Kentucky. And the Walk Across Kentucky is a native plant collection. It's 80 acres, 65 of which are cultivated. The plants in the collection are all wild collected, and they represent the 7 physiographic regions of Kentucky. So wild collected means that someone actually went out across the state of Kentucky, collected seeds and seedlings, brought them back to the Arboretum or back to the University of Kentucky. We germinated the seeds, grew them out, and then planted them in the ground at the Arboretum. So the native plant collection is really this repository of genetic information about the flora and biodiversity of Kentucky, which is really cool. We also have the Arboretum Woods, which is a 15-acre remnant inner bluegrass woodland. And there are over 90 species of trees and shrubs and plants in the Arboretum Woods, which is really cool. Some trees are between 200 and 400 years old. So it's a very special place, and we do a lot of work in that area to remove invasive species and sort of do ecological restoration so that we can restore it back to the bluegrass woodland that it was prior to settlement. So the Walk Across Kentucky is actually separated into these 7 physiographic regions. The way that the Arboretum is set up is that the regions in Kentucky that sort of touch each other, so like the bluegrass is next to the knobs, which is next to the Appalachian Plateau or Eastern Kentucky. The Arboretum itself is set up so that those regions sort of touch each other. And the whole point, besides representing the flora and conserving the biodiversity, is also so that when you're walking through, you can kind of get a real sense of place. So if you perhaps came to the Arboretum and you were from Eastern Kentucky, or you were from somewhere in the Pennyrile, which is more like central Kentucky, you could walk into that region, you would see plants that you would normally see in that area, and it can kind of give you a sense of where you are and just like a sense of place or like home. So we really, we're kind of like the Kentucky's Arboretum and Kentucky's Botanical Garden. So we try to bring in every aspect that we can into the work that we do. The Arboretum is a living museum. Part of what makes it so special is that there are records associated with all of the trees and shrubs. So that means that if I were to go out into the Appalachian Plateau or in Eastern Kentucky and collect seed from a magnolia tree, I would actually take a lot of information about where I collected the seed from, the tree I collected the seed from, the actual GPS coordinates, and when I brought it back, I would also record all of this information about how I treated the seed, how I germinated it, and then when it was planted. And all of that information is put into a database, and that database links that information to specific trees. And so when you're on the grounds, there may be really cool information related to a specific tree that we keep track of. And that's really important for education, for our specific records and for management, but also for scientific research. We also have this really cool resource called Arboretum Explorer. And that is an awesome way to explore the plants of the Arboretum. So you can go to this website, and there's a map of the trees that are in the Walk Across Kentucky that you can actually geolocate yourself and then see what tree you are in front of. You can also search for trees. You can search by region, so you can search for a specific region and see all the trees that are in that area. You can also look for different features of the Arboretum. If you're looking for a memorial tree, there's tours as well. So if you want to take a tour of the native trees of Kentucky or the native oaks. So some cool projects that we've been working on, one is related to climate change adaptation. So knowing that climate change is happening and that the trees and shrubs that have always, and just plants in general, that have been adapted to where we are now may not be adapted in the future. So some things that we've been working on are actually planning and trying to understand maybe which trees will be best adapted for this site. And if there are other trees from other areas, you know, in Kentucky or even more in the southeast that will in the future be adapted or be able to survive and thrive in Kentucky. So we're looking for that so we can really plan for the future and keep the Arboretum a place where there's beautiful trees and people can enjoy nature and learn about all the plants that Kentucky and the surrounding area have to offer.
Lexington's 4th annual Nature Hop is just around the corner, and Tori Summey tells us about this year's events.
Nature Hop is focused on getting people outside to enjoy the variety of green spaces throughout Fayette County and to enjoy those spaces in new ways. So a variety of organizations and businesses will be hosting events to get people outside to enjoy their natural spaces. And we'll be hosting those events throughout the day on both the September 18th and September 19th so that participants can join a multitude of activities. Some events that have happened in the past include yoga out at Ashland Park, tours of different parks around Lexington. New this year, we'll also be hosting a movie night right here in Shuleto Park, where participants can come and enjoy a variety of food vendors, educational events, and a pre-show that all lead up to showing of A Bug's Life. Really, our events can be focused on anything as long as it's out in nature, but we look to include things that diversify what we're doing. So things like art in the park or events where people can learn the history that's around them and enjoy spaces in ways that they might not have done so before. This year's Nature Hop is bigger and better than ever. Usually it's a one-day event that happens throughout the course of a Sunday, and this year we've opened it to be the course of a weekend. So September 18th and 19th will both be days for our Nature Hop, and instead of sticking to specific times, we've opened it up so that people can enjoy a multitude of events throughout the day and that we'll just have a more robust schedule. The great thing about this event is all of the activities are outside, so it's very easy to social distance. We'll also have masks available and several events that are self-guided, so you can do it at your own leisure without other individuals near you. The big thing to remember is to visit lexingtonky.gov/naturehop. There'll be more details on the event there as well as the submission form. We'll also be making sure to upload any schedules once we have those and maps of the event.
When we come back, being an active bystander. Welcome back to Lexington Now. August was Bystander Awareness Month, but as Don Runyon tells us, it's always the right time to be an active bystander.
Whenever someone makes a choice to do harm towards someone, either using their words or their actions to hurt someone else, if we can consider a photograph of our city, whenever someone did something that caused harm to someone else, you'd see this red dot kind of appear to let you know that there was an incident that occurred. So an opposite and equal reaction to that harm that's being done is someone else choosing to step in and say something, and we call that a green dot. So that's kind of where that all comes from. And with those green dots, the more green dots people are willing to do, the more people are willing to step outside of their comfort zone in a very safe way and non-confrontational way and say something that lets other people know that violence won't be tolerated around them and that everyone else is expected to do their part to help end it, the less opportunity we have for people to be harmed. And so everyone can kind of go home safe at the end of the day, and that's the goal. So we are closing out Bystander Awareness Month. August has been great, but one of the things we want to make sure that everybody understands is it is always a great time to be an active bystander. And by being an active bystander, we're really talking about someone who sees a situation that could potentially be harmful for someone else, and they make a decision to intervene and get involved. Oftentimes we see things, we look the other way. We think that's none of my business, or we might even get concerned that that situation is going to escalate and people may retaliate against us. But if we ignore it, it doesn't help end the violence, and someone's going to get hurt. So with Green Dot Lexington, we try and encourage individuals to use what we call the 3 Ds. And that means that you could do something direct, like saying, hey buddy, you need to back off. That's not appropriate. Or you could delegate, maybe looking around to see someone else in the situation who may be better equipped to help in that situation, that violence. Or you could do a distract, which is one of my favorites because I think I'm a little comedian. And so it could be as simple as knocking over a drink or tripping and falling, or pretending that you recognize the person in the situation and starting up some offhanded conversation with them, just to give time to kind of de-escalate in the moment, or potentially give someone a chance to get away from that environment. So they can find information on our website at lexingtonky.gov/Green Dot. We have information on our Facebook page and our Instagram pages at Green Dot Lexington. And we have flyers and rack cards around town at various businesses and organizations that can kind of teach people some of those skills that they need to intervene when they see a situation of harm. The choice is never, should I do something? It's always, what should I do? And so with the 3 Ds or any other tools that we can give you, if you make the decision to do something, even if you're wrong, it lets the other person know that it's important that we say or do something and that violence should not ever occur. So it doesn't hurt to ask, but not asking definitely could hurt someone.
Lexington's fire department is celebrating 150 years of service. Battalion Chief Jordan Sauce takes a look back at the last century and a half.
With humor, the Lexington Fire Department started in Lexington, Kentucky. In reality, back in 1775, a settler named William McConnell actually settled here along a spring and ended up naming this place Lexington after the famous Revolutionary War in Massachusetts. And then in 1790, the prominent members of the community at that time ended up meeting at a place called Brent's Tavern, and they ended up forming what they called the Lexington Fire Company. And a gentleman by the name of John Bradford was actually voted to be in charge of that company moving forward. So 1790, the Lexington Fire Company is formed, and in 1798, the Union Fire Company is formed. So now you have 2 different companies operating under the umbrella of the Lexington Fire Department, but it's really 2 separate departments at that time. About 50 years later, in 1839, another company was formed, and that was called the Lyon Fire Company, and that was initiated and started by several firefighters who were already on the previous 2. They ended up breaking off and forming that 3rd company called the Lyon Company. Moving forward in 1864, a guy by the name of John R. Lackins ended up becoming the first paid fire chief of the Lexington Fire Department. And the next year, in March, Lexington's first steam-powered engine was introduced onto the department. In 1871, 2 major fires occurred in August. The first began in a Barnes & Woods drugstore at the corner of Main and Upper. A few days later, a second fire, this one near the corner of Main and Broadway, eventually destroyed more than half of a block between Main and Short. Later that fall, the vacant Lyon engine house. So remember, there was the Lexington Fire Company, and then you had the Union, and then you had the Lyon Fire Company. So the Lyon engine house, by this time they had probably merged into one, so that house was now vacant, ended up being sold with its remaining equipment, and the property of J.M. Tipton located on Short Street between Limestone and Upper, was actually purchased for a meager $6,500. And this became the original central fire station for the Lexington Fire Department. So currently in Lexington, it is the summer of 2021. We have 24 fire stations throughout Fayette County. The 24 fire stations, they cover 285 square miles, and they serve a population of almost 328,000 citizens located here in Fayette County. Within those 24 fire stations, including support bureaus and administrative positions, we have an authorized strength of 597 members, plus an additional 28 civilians. So we're sitting right around 630 total members with the Lexington Fire Department right now. On an average day, we're looking anywhere from 125 to over 200 calls. On a yearly basis, which is typically how we measure our incident response rates, we're pushing right around 60,000. I think in 2020 we were at 57,000. 46,000 plus was attributed to the EMS, the medical side of our response, and then just over 11,000 incidents were attributed to our fire response. The fire department is far more than just putting out fires. Modern day fire service actually has become an all hazards organization. It's a business, and businesses that fail to adapt to the community and the society that they're in tend to fail. And we can see that in any normal business besides the fire service. And so the fire service has continued to adapt and adjust. For example, we've added policies and protocols and equipment related to active shooters and active aggressor situations because of recent events in the last 10 to 20 years. Our services have broadened exponentially over the years as well. Fighting fires is actually some of the smallest amount of things that we do. As I mentioned previously, our EMS runs, or our medical calls, rank 47,000 every year, as opposed to our fire incidents at just around 11,000 a year. But that's not just what we do. Yes, medical is a big part of it, and emergency response is a critical aspect of it, but we also do fire prevention. We do fire inspections, we do public education, we do school visits, we have our own fleet maintenance and our own facilities maintenance bureaus that take care of all of our buildings and all of our apparatus. Big apparatus like fire trucks, and small fleet like Explorers and Corollas and Traverses. We have our own fire investigation bureau, and they investigate the origin and cause of fires in order to make not only citizens in the community safer, but also firefighters who have to respond to these types of fires.
LFUCG offices are closed on Monday this week in observance of the Labor Day holiday, but there are still several meetings at City Hall to tell you about, and we bring most of these meetings to you live. Check out our website for the most accurate and up-to-date coverage of city business. And now for a look at this week's live televised meetings. And we continue to keep you up to date on how the city is handling the pandemic via our official COVID-19 response site, including testing and vaccination sites. Simply click on the banner at the top of our homepage. That's all for now, but as always, you can keep up with us on social media, check out the latest traffic updates on Twitter at LexRex, or catch our live traffic cams on lexingtonky.gov. For all of us at Lex TV, I'm Neil Noah, and that's it.